very active recently, talking about what this government could do to actually boost growth. They keep talking about boosting growth, but they keep sort of getting the reverse effect. Every time they say we want to boost growth, it seems to go in the opposite direction.
Yeah, good morning, Mike. Yes, they certainly know how to do the opposite of what they promise. If you wanted a growth strategy, you wouldn't, for example, say that we can't get any more of our own oil and gas out of the ground and mustn't go exploring for it. There's a very well-paid industry that pays huge amounts of tax that they want to close down more quickly. You wouldn't say that our car industry making petrol and diesel cars has to stop making them before everybody else and not satisfy customers. That's another anti-growth measure. You wouldn't have the massively high carbon and energy taxes on industry, which means that we're closing all our blast furnaces to make steel, and we've closed down a lot of our ceramics, our glass, our paper, our aluminium. It's all anti-growth, deeply anti-industrial, and you'd have thought the labour movement would be saying more strongly to this government, look, we are the labour movement. We represent the industrial unions and the industrial workforce. We want to make things in Britain, because the whole Miliband-led strategy is to stop us making things in Britain, import them from abroad, and of course it's doubly crazy because we lose the jobs and the tax, and world CO2 goes up.
Right.
Because they're made in places that produce even more CO2, and you have all the marine diesel burnt in order to get the goods back here.
It is extraordinary, isn't it? I mean, the TUC have gone some way, haven't they, to agreeing with you and saying, actually, this net zero madness is actually going to cost too many jobs in Britain. So they're sort of halfway there. Do you think that's likely to increase if they really see pressure on jobs from their members? Because they're going to lose money that way.
Well, I hope it does, and I'm very much on their side. I think we do need a stronger industrial base. We need the revenues and the better paid jobs that produces. But we also see Chancellor Reeves in a real muddle over the numbers. I mean, she does a piece to camera a day or two ago saying that there's going to be all this extra money from VAT on private schools to improve the state schools, and yet her own Office of Budget Responsibility, which she believes in and wants to give a more prominent role, says that there are going to be 35,000 children over the next few years who need state school places because their parents can't afford to send them to a private school. So a lot of the money from the VAT is needed to buy all the extra teaching and places in the state schools. It doesn't produce the improvement.
Well, quite. And they're promising 6,500 more teachers, but I'm not sure, one, whether they can actually achieve that figure just by recruitment alone. And secondly, even if they do, it's less than one teacher for every 4 schools in Britain. So, I mean, it's hardly going to make much difference. We've already seen in Surrey, schools there saying we haven't got any spaces for any people coming out of the private sector. We're going to have to bus them to schools outside of the county.
Well, indeed, and you'd need quite a lot of those extra teachers for those extra school places in the way I've just been describing. Right. And you've got the same thing with the pensioner meanness. 10 million pensioners lose their winter fuel benefit.
Yes.
A few 100,000 will get a much bigger benefit, pensioner credit, because they'll qualify and they will claim it. And so quite a lot of the savings are removed in order to pay the extra pensioner credit, several times the amount that those minority pensioners would be getting, leaving well over 9 million pensioners still mugged and worse off.
Absolutely.
How does that make political sense or economic sense?
Well, indeed. And you've just tweeted today about the migration service and the hotels for illegal migrants as well, which is another huge cost to the government. You know, we're not going to pretend that it wasn't a problem for the Tories, because it was. But it's not getting any cheaper, is it?
Well, no, it's gone up. And Labour said they were going to close down the hotels. The Conservatives had started to do that. Too little, too late, but they'd started to do it. Now it's gone up again, and Labour just sort of shrug their shoulders and say, well, these things happen, or they say they've had more calm days across the channel. Well, you've got to manage the borders, whatever the weather, and they need to get on with it. And we're seeing now an overall figure of about 5 billion a year on asylum and hotels and border policing. And this is a massively increased figure, and it's going up all the time.
And what do you make as well of this latest offer from Sir Keir Starmer, the Prime Minister? He's asked the watchdogs of this country, the various kind of regulators, to help him with some ideas about how to kickstart the sluggish economy. I mean, surely he's asking the wrong people, isn't he?
Well, I'd have thought so, but I mean, I'd welcome any idea they come forward that makes sense. And I've sent him lots of free ideas through the public press and pointed out that quite a lot of the regulations that he needs to remove to allow us to grow are ones that he has put in or has intensified. I mentioned a couple of them this morning, the ban on cars and the ban on oil and gas.
Yeah.
We are deliberately stopping people doing things in Britain that you need for a growth strategy. If you want to be the fastest growing major economy, as they originally said they wanted to do, America is the economy to beat. It's growing more than twice as fast as Europe, and it's already a lot richer than us in Europe. And if you look at what America has done in recent years, they've had a massive expansion of domestic oil and gas, which has generated huge wealth and tax revenue. They've been incredibly successful at technology. Whereas all that Europe does is it regulates the American technology and shows how jealous it is. We've got to get on with emulating it and beating it.
Absolutely right. And Elon Musk's in the Telegraph this morning saying basically that very few businesses want to invest in what Keir Starmer's New Britain is all about because it's not really an environment for entrepreneurs.
Well, I hope he's wrong. And my recommendations to the Prime Minister are all recommendations that would make us more attractive in the way that Mr. Musk would approve. We certainly need to look again at our tax rates on entrepreneurs and small businesses and our business property taxes.
Yeah.
They are very uncompetitive. And I think the Conservatives and Labour were both wrong to stick corporation tax up to 25%. If you look just across the sea at the Republic of Ireland, they've had a much lower corporation tax rate for many years. They've been swamped with amazing good investments, particularly from America, that generate a lot of profits tax. And so with a much lower rate, the Republic of Ireland collects 4 times as much business tax per head as the UK does.
Yeah.
So we are mad to put on these high tax rates because it drives business away.
It does, absolutely right. So, John, good to see you. Thank you very much indeed.